If I call the creature Frankenstein at any point, I do apologise. Although, I suppose you could call him a Frankenstein. A Picasso, a Monet, a Van Gogh. Hey, that's one way around it. Hello everyone and welcome to Rewind Reviews. In this video I'm going to be taking a look at a movie that was one of my most anticipated movies of 2025, and that is Frankenstein. Released in 2025 and based on the classic novel by Mary Shelley, this new reimagining sees Dr. Victor Frankenstein, a brilliant but egotistical scientist, bringing a creature to life in a monstrous experiment that ultimately leads to the undoing of both the creator and his tragic creation. Written and directed by Guillermo del Toro, the movie stars Oscar Isaac, Jacob Elordi, Mia Goth, Christoph Waltz, Felix Camera, Charles Dance, David Bradley and Lars Mikkelsen. So yes, as I said at the start, this was one of my most anticipated movies of 2025. I'm a big fan of Guillermo del Toro's work, and anytime he makes something, I make time to see it. I also love the story of Frankenstein. So when this movie got announced, I was buzzing. And then I saw that this was going to be a Netflix exclusive, which was a disappointing revelation. It did get a limited, and I mean a limited release in theatres, but not in my area. So unfortunately I had to make do with seeing it at home. I do know two people who did go and see this in cinemas when it came out, and not jealous at all. The movie industry is in a really weird place right now, especially with the rise of streaming. And I do hope that movie production companies do make an effort to try and release as much as they can in cinemas. It's an amazing experience getting to see something on the big screen. It's something that I really love. Ask anyone who knows me, I'm in the cinema nearly every other week. But I don't think that anyone really knows what the future of cinema is going to be. But anyway, let's talk about the movie. So I went in with high hopes for this and I watched it on the day it released. Now, some may disagree with this. I don't think this is a masterpiece, and nor would I say that this is Del Toro's best film. 2 words: Pan's Labyrinth. But that said, I thought this was a fantastic reimagining. It follows the basic premise of the original tale almost to the letter, of Victor Frankenstein deciding to play God and creating a monster made of an amalgamation of different body parts and using lightning to give it life. But after a brief period of testing and experimenting, Victor's attempts to control it and perfect it spiral, and events soon escalate out of control. These are the basic ingredients for any Frankenstein movie, and this does find ways of incorporating different elements from different iterations, including one that surprised me. I won't spoil how, but I do like that there is a really subtle reference towards the bride. All of these elements are done in a very unique Guillermo del Toro approach that extends well beyond the basic premise. And in doing so, I think this has become one of the best interpretations of this story I've ever seen. What's unique about this is the way that it's presented and how it plays out, with Victor recounting his tale to the captain of a ship that's trapped in ice, going all the way back to his childhood and his strange relationship with his father, which comes back around later on when you see how Frankenstein is with the creature. And the first half of the movie is focused on his life, leading up to both the creation and subsequent escape of the creature. And then the second half begins. What caught me off guard was how the movie then switches perspectives, and the second half of the film is through the perspective of the creature and what happens after he escapes. It's a genius decision that helps add more layers and depth for the creature, and you see him learning and developing with the help of an old man and his family as he hides away on their farm. How nobody checks the shed within the, weeks, months that he's in there for? I don't know. But the decision to do that in this section of the film really humanises the creature more than ever before. He even starts being able to have conversations with people, like full-length conversations with people, in-depth conversations with people, which is much more in line with the original story. The stilted, thick, zombie-like monster was actually from the Boris Karloff movies, and that version of the creature has become the most iconic version of him. But there's several different interpretations of the creature that have appeared over the years that do get this aspect right. Like the one from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein with Kenneth Branagh, the one from the Hotel Transylvania series, DC Comics have a version of him, the one from Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein, the slightly bizarrely Sid Vicious and Richie Edwards inspired one played by Christian Bale in Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride, and the guilty pleasure movie Van Helsing starring Hugh Jackman. I will stand by, I think that is a fun movie. Anyway, it's really cool that they incorporated this element, and I'm really glad that they did. It helps separate it from other interpretations of this story, and I think that it makes it a bit more memorable too, and way more quotable. If you are not to award me love, I will indulge in rage. I had goosebumps for that. Anyway, if I had any criticisms of the overall story, I would say it's a mixture of the length and pace. As absorbing as I found this movie, I do think that there are times where I do think that it was a little bit slow, and I think that it did take a little bit too long to get going. The movie is just about 2.5 hours long, and considering just how much time this movie spans, it is warranted, but I reckon you could trim at least 10 to 15 minutes or so of this. I did talk to a few people after seeing this, and that was the biggest complaint that they all had. But that said, I was never bored and I hardly ever took my eyes off the screen. This is a beautifully told, tragic tale that does what we expect, but dives deeper into the characters and makes them easier to empathise with. Let's talk about them, shall we? Oscar Isaac stars as the not-so-good Dr. Frankenstein, And he's brilliant. This is one of the few interpretations of this story that really highlights who he is as a person and not just a mad scientist. We see him as a kid growing up and all the events that lead him to the inception of creating the creature. And by the time we get to Oscar Isaac as Frankenstein, we understand why he's so egotistical, why he's creating the creature, why everything about the creature has to be perfect, and ultimately why he treats him the way he does. So a shout out to Christian Convery as the young Frankenstein. The way that Oscar Isaac plays every aspect of Victor, his boastfulness, the ego, the genius, the madness, is genuinely really good, and I love what he brings to this character. Plus, he comes out with probably the perviest way of saying a single word I heard all year. Reproduction. Is he joking? Is he mocking? Is he curious what would happen? All of the above? Why am I asking this? That's the real question. Anyway, Oscar is fantastic as Frankenstein, and I'm really happy with what he does. But, as great as he is, I think it's pretty unanimously agreed that the real standout performance of this movie is Jacob Elordi as the creature. Everyone had a feeling that the creature would be the highlight of this movie, but I don't think anyone was prepared for just how good he is. This is honestly a phenomenal performance and easily one of the best interpretations of this character I've seen. Jacob Elordi brings a genuine sense of heart and humanity every time he's on screen, and I love how that slowly wears away with each of his experiences, but it still maintains a slight glimmer of hope. There's a childlike sense of wonder and innocence to him, and I love what Jacob does with his physicality as well as he slowly gets used to his body, and his vocalization too as he starts to learn how to talk. But that's not to say that they completely skip over the more monstrous aspects of the creature. They do have it and feature it in a few sequences, and he can be quite vicious when threatened, especially the sequence with the wolves. But that isn't the main focus. He's physically imposing, absolutely, and there is always a sense that something might go wrong. But as the classic tale goes, he is not the monster of the story. As the tagline says, only monsters play God. Jacob Elordi's performance as the creature is fantastic, and I think that it's easily one of the best performances of last year. As for the rest of the cast, there's a pretty stellar lineup of big names, and all of them are on top form, including Mia Goth in dual roles as Victor's mother Claire and sister-in-law Elizabeth, Charles Dance as Leopold Frankenstein, Christoph Waltz as Harlander, Felix Kammerer as Victor's brother William, Lars Mikkelsen as Captain Anderson, and David Bradley in a really touching standout role as the blind man that helps the creature learn. He's my second favourite part in this. The scenes between him and the creature are masterfully done. They all do some amazing work and they all fit their roles really well, especially Mia Goth, even if her characters aren't the most complex. And speaking of amazing, I love the look of this film. This is a genuinely beautifully gothic looking movie with some incredible cinematography and framing. The colour grading is excellent, and combined with the costumes, it does help make for some pretty striking imagery. And on top of that, there's some amazing use of lighting and shadows too, which kind of plays into the story in a subtle way. The overall production design as well was incredible, and I can now officially say award-winning. It would have been an absolute travesty if this wasn't recognised or praised in some way, because it is genuinely spectacular. The set design, locations, the costuming, and especially the prosthetics and makeup used for the creature, it's gorgeous and honestly some of the best I saw last year. It's genuinely brilliant, and it really helps add an extra sense of believability, grit and realism to everything that happens. It also makes the blood and guts look a bit more real too. Yeah, if you're squeamish in any way, I think you're going to struggle with this. This is gory, and it goes into some pretty graphic detail about how the human body works, almost to the point where it did make me question whether a 15 certificate might have been a bit low. It's definitely one of the pushier ones, but I think that's up for debate. Not that I wasn't expecting this to be graphic, but there were a few scenes that did catch me off guard, especially the sequence where Victor starts building the creature. This is actually one of the very few adaptations of Frankenstein where you do see Victor actually building the creature. It even goes one step further and has a scene where Victor goes looking for corpses on a battlefield, and you see him actually cutting up all the bits that he wants. I did say it was graphic, but I cannot deny how good it looks, because most of it is done for real. They're using puppets, animatronics and props, and it is genuinely very clever. Even that half-assembled torso he shows off to his fellow scientists earlier on in the film, it's a little disgusting, but it is really cool. So again, if you are squeamish, maybe give it a think before you watch this. It is worth it though, and maybe don't have anything to eat when you watch this. Just letting you know. This is a very practical movie, but it does still have a few effects sprinkled throughout. Just a few things here and there, and they're not the best I've seen, but at the same time, they are only used when absolutely necessary, and I don't think they distract from the story. But there was a few moments that did make me go, that's definitely CG. But as I said, I don't think it distracts, and I don't think that it takes you out of any moment. It is a very immersive movie, and I think that you will get very into it when you watch it, and I think one thing that does help that is a very excellent sound design. The sound design is absolutely flawless, and I think there's some great sound effects in this, and I think it might have benefited from a cinema experience. And as for the music from Alexandre Desplat, I would say that it is pretty good. It has a bit of an old school gothic horror feel to it. Lots of like violins and piano score and things like that. It sounds really good. I really love the slightly ethereal kind of quality it has. And there were a few moments that did make me wonder if either John Williams or Danny Elfman were involved in this. There's a few moments that do sound very much like something they'd make. It's honestly beautiful and dramatic and really helps add to a very captivating atmosphere. If you can, it is definitely worth a listen to. Overall, As I said, I don't think that this movie is a masterpiece, but I do think that it is a pretty amazing movie. While I definitely see the pace and the runtime being an issue for some people, which I do understand, I think this was phenomenal and easily one of the best films to come out in 2025. Whether this is considered to be the definitive adaptation of the story of Frankenstein is up for debate, but in my opinion, this is definitely one of the best. If you love the story of Frankenstein, if you love the cast, or if you're a fan of Guillermo del Toro, I definitely think that this is a must-watch. So with all that being said, my rating for Frankenstein 2025 is a 9 out of 10. This was absolutely worth the wait, and I cannot wait to see what it is that Guillermo del Toro does next. Right, that is pretty much everything I want to say for this video, so thank you very much for watching this video if you have. If you enjoyed this content, please be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification button, and let me know down below what you think of the movie, and which version of Frankenstein is your favourite. And let me know if you have any suggestions for any future rewatch reviews you want to see me do. But until next time, thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you in the next video. See you guys.